So you've probably already realized, even this year alone, that how much the nature of the workforce has changed. And it's become far more competitive than when we were even 7 months ago. And, that's why having a really good, strong brand is one of the most key critical aspects of staying ahead of the competition. I'll just move this window here. Okay. But creating a compelling brand message for many of us can be a real challenge. I mean, where do we start? What should we focus on? What are we supposed to say? And the purpose of this webinar is really going to help you answer those questions and give you a much clearer guide to creating your own personal sales pitch. What I'm going to do is just, before I go into that, let's just go here. Is just talk a little bit about me. So those of you who don't know who I am or haven't really kind of encountered me before, my name is Jonathan Maltby and I'm a career consultant. And what I do is I specialize in professional identity and personal brand management. As I say to people, as a career coach, I don't do any life coaching. I don't get into the kind of the fluffy stuff. I just go into the hardcore career aspect. And what I've been doing for the last 8 years has been helping people sort of build their confidence so that they can better sell themselves in order to accelerate their careers. And I've developed a range of strategies and techniques that have helped people, redesign and relaunch their careers, especially if their careers have been stagnating or if they felt that their careers have been on autopilot. So it's really about helping them strategically and consciously taking control of their career. And I call it a career by design. As part of this process, I help people define their professional identity. This is the crux of your brand and what we're going to be talking about as part of the formula that I'm going to show you today of how to go ahead and market and sell yourselves. And as part of defining your professional identity, I help people uncover their unique strengths and skills. What I've noticed is a lot of people tend to talk about their skills on a very kind of surface level. So when you say, what are you good at? A lot of people will go, oh, well, that's a really good question. I've got good communication skills. I can prioritize. I can well work in a team. I'm a problem solver. I'm results focused. All of those things, which sound pretty good, but they're only surface level skills. Using those skills, or what I call the fast food skills, is really good, is really going to stop you from standing out in the competition, because too many people use those skills and they kind of all blend in. But today I'm going to show you the technique to really amp up the communication of what your real skills are. As part of this, I also help people package and brand themselves. I help them create a compelling brand message that they can then reach their target audience, and as well as create a visibility strategy, because we've got to get you known. And that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people struggle with, is getting known. And at the end of the day, it's really about helping people declutter their careers, declutter their minds, so that they can get the clarity on who and what they are and the direction they want to take their career in. And for many people, what this has done is re-energize their career by giving them often a fresh perspective and going, wow, I never thought about myself in that way. That's awesome. That gives me much more kind of tools to be able to market myself. But it's really about helping people increase their professional self-awareness. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a moment. Okay, so you've all been to interviews at some stage in your life, and most interviews tend to start off with this question. So tell me about yourself. And the first few minutes of an interview is kind of the make or break. They say you never get a second opportunity to make a good first impression. And this is your chance to step up and take center stage. Now, you may also hear this question when dealing with somebody in a social context for the first time, or if you're in business and you are talking to a potential client, they're going to want to know about you. Now, whilst on the surface, this question may seem kind of simple, dig a little deeper, and it's one of the most hardest questions to ask. In fact, a lot of my clients come to me who are really struggling to answer this question. And some of them actually really fear answering this question. I know some of them would prefer that the ground would swallow them up. So when someone asks you, so tell me about yourself, what they're really doing is saying to you, hey, give me the verbal representation of your personal brand. And in some cases, this is the chance to sell yourself in an interview. So what I want to do now as the first exercise, is in the chat window. If you are one of those people who kind of struggle with answering, so tell me about yourself, just put a yes into that chat window, because I can guarantee you're definitely not alone. Yeah, a lot of us with that. And, you know, I've had 9 separate career changes over the last 25 years. And wow, can you imagine having changed career 9 times? It was really hard for me to answer that question. Yeah, I can see a lot of people up, they're feeling it, definitely. Good. Yeah. Now, there are reasons why we struggle with this. And after working with so many people for so long, I've kind of realized that the reason that we struggle to answer out these is it's kind of a pattern. It's a kind of a theme that I see with so many people. And it really comes down to 2 reasons why we struggle to answer this question. The first one being our modesty. Our modesty gets in the way because we've been taught from a very early age that, you know, modesty is a virtue that we need to hang on to for dear life, okay? And modest people don't talk about themselves. So when we're confronted with this question of, hey, so tell me a bit about yourself, we have this tendency to want to push back and go, you know what? I don't feel right. This is what goes on inside our head. I don't feel right talking about myself. This just doesn't feel, this feels awkward. I don't want to come across as proud or boastful. So we tend to undersell ourselves or keep our mouths shut. You've got to think about it. How many career opportunities have you potentially missed out on because your modesty, or what I call your misplaced sense of modesty, prevented you from actually telling your story? Okay, so that's the first reason. Now, the second reason, and I'm talking from complete experience here, having worked with so many people, the second reason that most people struggle to answer this question is because of lack of professional self-awareness. In other words, we don't know enough about ourselves to know exactly what it is that we are selling. Or we do know, but we just don't know how to connect it all together in a kind of a succinct pitch, in other words. We don't even know what we're supposed to be saying, what to focus on, or half the time, where to actually start. Now, people diagnosed with lack of professional self-awareness may experience the following symptoms, and see if you can pick up how many of these you can relate to. The first one, confusion as to who and what they are. In other words, I don't know what I am, or maybe I'm a lot of things, but I'm really struggling to put that together in a really good, tight package. The second reason is, hey, you know, as a result of not knowing who and what I am as a professional in my field, I don't know how to communicate my brand, either verbally or in my CV or in my LinkedIn or in a networking event. The other thing is, and this is a big one, is that kind of unaware of your career blind spots. Everybody has a career blind spot somewhere. And a blind spot is something that kind of sits outside our peripheral vision. It's there, but we're not aware of it. And often these blind spots is something that holds us back in our career. We don't know what it is, but we know that we could be more than we actually are, but these blind spots are stopping us. And what happens is once these blind spots are revealed, wow, it can have a profound impact in accelerating your career. And what I found is that there's 2 main areas that your blind spots sit in. The one is your skills or capabilities. And the second is the value that these skills and capabilities have for a business, an organization, or another individual. What makes me valuable? And those are often what sits in those blind spots. The next thing is that this lack of self-awareness means that people tend to undersell themselves in a lot of ways. You know, we often end up in roles that are below our capability. Also, we miss out on career opportunities, especially if we're wanting to position ourselves for promotion or get another job. And if we undersell ourselves, those opportunities pass us by. Lack of career progression is another symptom, and ultimately getting paid far less than what they deserve. I mean, think about it this way. How many opportunities, again, have you potentially missed out on because you weren't effectively able to sell yourself or communicate your brand in verbal or written form? I want to give you an example of a client that I was working with a couple of years ago. Matt and I sort of started working together, and Matt was a bit frustrated. Well, he was very, very frustrated. He'd been in the same job for the last 13 years, and unfortunately his career had stagnated. And one of his biggest problems was he wasn't fully aware of the full range of his capabilities and what made him valuable. And so every time he came up for an internal promotion or applied for a role internally to grow his career, he always undersold himself and he always missed out. As a result, his wages stagnated as well. And so Matt and I started working together, and it wasn't long before he kind of realized, you know what, I'm a way better than what I thought I was. And he realized that he wasn't communicating this. And he also, as I said, he realized he was getting paid far less. And so we worked together. And one of the first things through working together and realizing, wow, I am so much better than I thought I was. I can do so much more. I know what my value is. His confidence skyrocketed pretty quickly, okay? Because he'd been beaten down by years of getting missed out of those promotions. And so what happened was he learned to sell himself, aced the interviews, got a new job at a new company, okay? But here's the thing, he got 100% pay increase. He doubled his salary. Now that's not a normal thing to double your salary. Usually you can get another maybe 20 grand or whatever that is, but he doubled his salary. It was a fantastic outcome for him. But there was also a downside. You see, he realized that he could have made this move 5 years beforehand. He already had all the skills and experience necessary, but he failed to be able to sell himself. And what he realized, what he missed out on was $250,000 in lost salary. That's a lot of money to lose out on over 5 years. Now, I'm willing to bet that there are people sitting in this Zoom call right now who have undersold themselves. They're in jobs far below their capability, and they're getting paid far less than what they actually deserve. In fact, I know that there's people in here who could get an extra 20 grand if only they did a better job of selling themselves. So before we start to sell ourselves, we need to in fact determine what are we selling? And we need to get clarity on who and what we are. In other words, we need to get a greater understanding of us. And the first step in this process is we need to start thinking about unpacking ourselves or figuring out our key components. And to get us started, I kind of wanted to use a bit of an analogy that a business uses. So let's look how a typical business kind of functions. When starting a business usually identifies a problem that exists in the market. They go, okay, well, this is a problem that we see either people or other businesses experiencing. The next thing they do is they go, okay, we need to create a solution for this problem. And that solution could typically be in the form of a product or a service. The next thing they do is they go, okay, well, we've got a good idea here. We've got a solution. Let's find out our business name. What are we going to label ourselves as, in other words? Then once they've done that, they've got to figure out, okay, what is my brand? What is the brand of this company? What separates us from our competition? What makes us unique? In other words, what's our unique selling proposition? The next thing they need to do is going, okay, who is experiencing these problems exactly? Let's be laser focused. And so what they do is they identify their target market. Okay. The next thing they do is going, right, how do we reach this target market? Well, they start creating some marketing materials and campaigns, and they've got to put together a compelling message. The next thing they need to do is figure out how we're going to reach this target audience. And so they start looking at some communication channels to use as part of their campaigns. And that could be video. It could be webinars like this. It could be social media. It could be print. It could be television. It could be radio. A whole lot of different platforms that they can reach. And if everything works out, their business is going to be successful. Okay, so that's kind of the model. Now, it might change order a little bit, but that's kind of the premise. So here's the novel thought. If you want to learn to sell yourself, then you need to start thinking like a business, because you are in the business of you, in other words. Now, if you are in the moment now thinking of applying for a job, or are applying for a job, or looking for new clients or anything else like this, there's got to be one question that you've got to ask yourself right at the beginning. Why does this job exist? That's the first thing you've got to think about. And the next thought that you need to have is, because the business has a problem. The business has a gaping hole in their capability. They can't do something because of this problem. And this is why it exists, all right? Now, they're trying to find the right person with the skills and experience to resolve that problem so that their business can win in the market. So when it comes to selling yourself, this is the fundamental thing. This is going to be the game changer. You don't want to sound like every other applicant vying for that role. They're all positioning themselves as applicants. You want to do something different. You want to position yourself as the solution to the problem that that company is having, okay? You're no longer just an applicant. You're in a position to help them achieve their goal. So that means that you need to start the whole process of selling yourself by identifying exactly what problems your expertise and experience can solve for organizations. Now, selling yourself doesn't just mean opening your mouth and doing a great pitch. It takes planning. It takes an understanding of you, what you are, what your capabilities are, but most importantly, what makes you valuable. So I want to take you through this process now of unpacking yourself before we can start actually putting together our sales pitch. So the first thing you want to do is you want to define what it is that you do. You want to get some focus to help you know exactly what you should be selling. In other words, we need to put some context around you, because a lot of times people struggle with, I don't know what to talk about myself. I don't know how to sell myself. I don't know how to talk about my strengths and my skills. And the reason for that is because you don't have the context. But here's the context. What typical problems do businesses experience that relate to my field? That's the first thing you want to think of, okay? Now, I've been working with a lot of marketers recently and really kind of helping them build their brand. And I sat down and kind of worked with these marketers and going, well, what are the most common problems that businesses experience when it comes to marketing? And we've identified these. Now, you can apply this to any industry, but for the sake of this example here, I'm just going to talk about marketing. Okay. Some of the problems that most businesses experience is that they are invisible. They struggle to stand out from the competition. They may be experiencing a lack of brand and reputation. Maybe they struggle to define what their unique selling proposition is, what separates them from others. Unable to define their target audience and market segment. Maybe they've got no strategic marketing plan and little or no online presence. Maybe they've got an outdated website, no social media, etc. Now, maybe you can solve all of these problems because, hey, maybe you are an expert at all of this sort of stuff. But just because you can solve a problem doesn't mean to say that you should position yourself as the solution to all of those problems. Okay. Otherwise, you become that jack of all trades. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. So what you want to do is you want to choose the 3 problems that you love to solve, okay? I always say choose 3 because it's much easier to build a good sales pitch around a small number of things as opposed to a lot of things. We want to get laser focused. So let's say you're working in marketing again and you're going, right, out of these 6 problems, the ones that I really love to solve, that I get excited about doing, it makes me excited to get out of bed and solve these problems, could be, I love helping brands, build their brand and reputation, or maybe where they are unable to figure out, hey, who is our audience? And maybe where they don't have any kind of online presence. So those are those 3 things. Now, let's take this the next step further. How do you go about solving these problems? So maybe if you list these problems and then start for each of these problems, we want to figure out, how do I do it? In other words, we want to figure out what your playbook is or your process. Think about it as your own operating manual or your methodology. In other words, the steps that you take to solve these problems. And it's important that you figure out your methodology because this is a big part of being able to sell and articulate yourself. And you know what I found is that many people who, once we've defined their playbook, their operating manual, they go, you know what? I don't have to do this just in this particular industry or in this job. I've now kind of gone bigger, that I can see the bigger picture. I can use my formula or my methodology to solve a range of other business problems in a range of industries. And this is very helpful technique when people want to actually pivot their career or change industries or get into something new. Figure out what your formula is and you can apply it across a number of different fields. So you want to look at each problem and define the actual steps. Now, the next thing you want to think about as part of solving these problems, what are your relevant areas of expertise, experience, education, and tools that you use to solve these problems? In other words, these are your skills and capabilities. So you figured out what the problem is. You told people how you're going to fix the problem, and now you're going to highlight, this is how I do it. I'm really good at this, or I've got a lot of expertise in these things, or I'm going to use these tools to help your business fix these problems. The next area you want to think about is, do you have an area of specialization? So why position yourself as a specialist? And the reason is because a specialist is perceived to be a subject matter expert and also a high value asset for an organization. Every time you deal with a specialist, you know you're going to be paying a lot more than a generalist, aren't you? That's because they're perceived to be those, those people who are playing in that next space. Now, the opposite of the specialist is the jack of all trades, in other words, okay? And I'm going to talk about the jack of all trades in a moment. So to help you figure out where your area of specialization is, you could do it in the following ways. One, figure out, hey, where does my greatest depth of skills and experience lie? And the second thing is, well, what am I most passionate about? In other words, what are the problems that I love to solve? Or is it a cause within a particular industry? Or is it within a subset? What drives you? What motivates you? And when I've spoken to specialists in the past, when I've interviewed them and spoken to them, I said, how did you figure out what your area of specialization was? And most of them said, I found out the intersection of where my passion and my skills overlapped. Because you want to specialize in an area that you're passionate about. All right. So things that you could become a specialist in is maybe fixing those three problems. You want to build your industry knowledge. You want to build your brand or your sales pitch around just those three things, if you like, which means, as I said, you can become what they call industry agnostic. You can jump from industry to industry. It's irrelevant. Your methodology works across all industries or a number of them. Or you could decide to become niche. In other words, become that specialist. So here's two examples. You could, if you're in marketing, say, right, I only want to market luxury, high ticket or high value items. I want to be seen as the expert in marketing high value, high ticket items. Okay. Or let's say maybe you're in finance, so you're a financial advisor, for example. So you're going to go, right, you know what, I can provide financial advice across a number of different platforms to help people build portfolios. But what I'm really passionate about is helping people get into their first home. That may be the thing that drives you. So you would be seen as the specialist in helping people plan to get into their first home. So that when people say, I need to get into my first home, who do I go? And because you've built your brand and because you've got such a good sales pitch, they know to come to you because that's how you've positioned yourself. Now, the next thing you want to do is, okay, I figured out those parts. Now I need to figure out, what am I going to call myself? Okay, you need to decide that because like a business has a name, you need to come up with your own name too. All right, something that people can easily get their head around. Now, a lot of people kind of label themselves according to their job title, but sometimes their job title can be pretty vague. And the problem with labeling yourself against a vague job title means that if you change jobs, you're going to have to continuously reinvent yourself. So what you want to do is you want to kind of find out, what is the umbrella label that everything I do sits underneath? The thing is that you do not want to make people think. Because the minute someone has to try and figure you out, has to use their imagination, you've lost control of your brand. In other words, okay? This is about brand control. You want to be handing yourself to somebody on a platter. Make it easy for them to get their head around you. All right, let's get into this formula now, okay? So we've done all the deconstruction. I've given you a little bit of a methodology to unpack yourself. Now we're going to start putting it together in a brand message with a unique selling proposition. Okay, we're going to start creating a list of statements that will form the basis of your sales pitch. So here we go. There's 4 parts, and then I'm going to show you examples of how to put these together. So if you start off with something like, I am a. So what are you exactly? All right, your label. The second part of the formula is, what are the problems that I solve? Okay, the what, in other words. The next thing is, what is my capability in solving the problems? This is your how. And the last part, and the most important part of all of this formula is this: the outcome. What can I help a business or person produce? What result can I get them? Okay. You see, crafting these statements around these 4 key areas can help you communicate your value that you can bring to either to an organization if you're an employee, or to a client if you're a business owner, okay? These statements that we're going to create around these 4 points are your value statements. So let's take this formula one step further. Here we go. Start off with, what am I positioning myself as exactly here? I am a. And this is a great way to answer that question. So tell me about yourself. So here's the formula. The next thing, what are the problems that you solve for organizations? I help organizations, fill in the blank. Here we go. The next part is, how do you fix them? The skills and capability. I do this through my ability, or I am experienced in these areas, etc. And the last thing, what outcome do you help them achieve? How can you take them from a sense of pain into a sense of gain? Because right now they're in pain because they can't fix what they need to fix, because they need you to help them come and fix it. And then you want to start that off with, so that they can. All right, here's an example I want to take you through. And the following 3 examples I'm going to walk you through are actual examples of sales pitches that I have created working with my clients to create. So I don't create it, we create it together, okay? The sales pitch, all right? Because if I created it, it's not going to be your words, okay? It's got to be your words to make it genuine, authentic, so that you can feel it, okay? And it makes it easier to communicate in your own language. So these are all people that are using this that we've created together. The first one is for marketing again, okay? And we're going to go all the way back to that first example of those 6 problems that we narrowed down to 3. I am a digital marketing professional. Excellent. I don't have to use my imagination now. I know what you do. I help organizations navigate and overcome the challenges of defining and refining their target audience, where there is lack of cohesive brand and little or no online presence. Can you see there's 3 parts to that? And those 3 parts came from those 3 problems that you've identified that you love to solve. Okay, so the next thing is, I do this through my ability to remove the barriers that prevents them from growing their business, including identifying, segmenting, and connecting with their target audience, creating a compelling brand message, and then communicating it across a range of digital platforms such as social media, so that the business can grow their market share, build brand awareness, and increase their revenue. Now, if you wanted to put this into an elevator pitch, we can cut this down a little bit, but this is a great opening pitch for a CV or a LinkedIn, isn't it? Okay. Now you can actually mix and match a little bits of this formula around a little bit. So here's an alternate way you could present yourself. I am a digital marketing professional, and I help businesses grow their market share, build brand awareness, and increase their revenue. I do this through my ability to navigate and overcome the challenges. So you can actually move bits and pieces of this formula around and adjust it slightly, but as long as the message it comes across is very important. All right, here's another example. I'm a business growth specialist with extensive background in FMCG. I help businesses re-energize when they're in a period of stagnation and overcome the challenges that prevents them from growth. Using my expertise in product management and innovation, I can uncover a business's blind spots, as well as the hidden opportunities that exist within their organization. As part of this, I can help them revitalize their products and services, and then expand these into new domestic and overseas markets, so that the business can increase market share and ultimately grow their revenue. Or you could say, I'm a business growth specialist. I help businesses increase market share and ultimately grow their revenue. Bang, imagine saying that in an elevator pitch or at a networking event. Short, sharp, and sweet. All right, the next thing, another one here. I'm a senior communications advisor specializing in strategic community engagement and high-level stakeholder management. I help organizations better engage with their local communities and businesses to collaborate on transformational infrastructure projects. Through my expertise in engagement and communication strategy, I can develop successful social media and video content that attracts positive community sentiment and behaviors, so that the organization can successfully deliver their projects with genuine community buy-in. Can you see each one of these follows that formula? Okay, as I said, these are real people. These are real sales pitches, personal sales pitches. And you know what's cool about these pitches? It's not all about you, is it? There's a 50-50 of you and them. So the I am a part is about you. I help organizations is about them. Through my expertise in, well, that's about you. So that they can is about them. So it's not just about you, it's about them. And that actually makes it easier to sell yourself if you put the focus on the organization or the business or them, and then weave your sales pitch around that. So I want to talk about some really good at kind of advantages to being able to sell yourself, okay? And there is an enormous amount, but I want to talk about at least 4 of those here. Now, the most obvious is, yeah, I'm going to be able to land a new job. Awesome. But it goes much more than that. So using this technique of that I've just shown you now, that formula and that process that I've just shown you, you can actually gain a much deeper understanding of you. And that leads to greater professional self-awareness and increased confidence. I have seen so many people's self-confidence skyrocket in a very short amount of time when we revealed those blind spots and we've made them aware of just how awesome they actually are. The next thing it does is it gives you a competitive edge. Now, many of you, and that's totally normal, at the beginning said that you identified yourself as one of those people who struggled to answer that "so tell me about yourself" question, okay? The fact is that most people struggle with that, means that you can use that as your secret weapon, because the moment that you learn to talk about yourself, you can actually use this to stay ahead of the competition. There's somebody with their microphone on. Can I just get you all just to check your microphones just to make sure you're all muted? Awesome, thank you. Cool, so that gives you that competitive edge. As I said, most people suck at selling themselves. You use this formula, hone it down, you're immediately gonna have the edge. The next thing it does is it opens up far more doors to career opportunities. In fact, your brand can actually help you attract career opportunities. Okay. I always say, build your brand and you never get good at selling yourself and you never have to write a cover letter again. Because when you get good at selling yourself, it makes it easier for other people to then sell you. And that attracts career opportunities. See, most people look at finding a job as a one-way street. I'm going out to look for a job. But what happens if you could sell yourself so well and get known in your industry as being that subject matter expert, that specialist, that those jobs come and find you? And the next thing it does is it positions you as an authority in your field as well. And that eventually enables you to be perceived as that thought leader, which enables you to attract more of those career opportunities. The authority is around solving the problems that you solve. Okay, so here's my top tips now for creating your personal sales strategy, okay? The most important thing that you can do is be specific. Make it easy for people to get their head around you. I want to use a bit of an analogy here. Okay, think about your brain, all right? Your brain's main 2 functions is to help you survive and thrive. And to do that, it needs to conserve calories so that it can devote its attention to these 2 functions. In other words, you don't want to tax other people's brains by having them try to figure out what you are and what you do, because that's going to make them burn brain calories, okay? You want to do all the heavy lifting for them. Make it easy for them to get their head around you, and they will be able to easily talk about you to other people. And that's how we create brand ambassadors. Now, earlier on, I talked about the jack of all trades, and I really want to kind of dive into that a little bit more. You want to avoid branding yourself as the jack of all trades. Jack of all trades are the loveliest people, but they're also the most difficult to work with because they don't fit in a category. You see, the jack of all trades is vague. They're trying to be everything to everybody, okay? And that means that the brain has to try and figure them out. And remember, the brain doesn't want to figure that out. The brain wants to survive and thrive. So the jack of all trades is vague, and you need to be specific, because the key to selling yourself is the specifics and the detail. You see, vague only confuses your audience, and a vague sales pitch, well, that costs you opportunities. And at the end of the day, it costs you money. For that other guy, it cost him $250,000 because it was vague. The next thing you want to do is you want to put your audience at the center of your message. It's not about what you do, but what you can do for them. It's your value, you see. This will help you get over that, hey, I shouldn't be beating my chest, because it's not about you. I'm making it about them, okay? Weave your sell around them. What problems are they facing? How does your expertise help them solve those problems? How do you help them lead them to a better place, okay? That's what's going to resonate with them. The next one, focus on the outcomes. This is what makes you valuable. Okay, ladies and gents, I want to put it to you very clearly and very bluntly. All right, companies don't care about what you do during the workday as much as they care about what outcome you can produce for them. How can you make them better? And that's the space you want to play in when it comes to selling yourself. Focus on the outcomes that you can help them achieve. Think about it this way, right? The challenge that they're facing right now, that gap in skills, is causing them pain. It is having an impact on their business. They cannot get to where they want to go because of that challenge. And by doing what you do and being an expert in your area, you're transforming their pain to gain. And that gain is where your value lies. So by solving their problems, you're enabling them to reach their business goals. And that's where you want to plug yourself in. Okay, so to kind of recap, when it comes to creating or selling yourself and creating your pitch, these 3 key components. Start with a problem, position yourself as the solution, and focus on what outcomes you can produce, how you can transform their pain to gain. Okay, right. You can beat your chest in a humble way. You're allowed to beat your chest, and you can do this by communicating your value. As I said, to be able to effectively sell or promote yourself, you need to first and foremost become an authority on you. And just as we go back to that business analogy, just as a business often has a CEO, you need to become the CEO of you. All right, well, we've come to the end of the presentation. But before I go into the Q&A, and I'm going to stick around for a while to answer any questions and just have some general discussion, I want to talk about some of the services that I offer. So today I've demonstrated a quick and simple method to really get you up and running with your personal sales pitch. But we can actually go much deeper levels that we can explore to help you really supercharge your brand. And if you'd like to dig deeper and discover what I call as your superpowers and what makes you really valuable, and then build a good brand or a strong brand around that, then I've got another number of options that can help you do this. So I offer hourly consults. In the last 2 weeks, I've done 26 hourly consults. It's been a lot of work. That's been great. I've really loved engaging with people, and Zoom works really, really well. And I also offer some 3 very in-depth structured personal branding programs. So if you just want to get into personal branding, start thinking about your brand, I have a basic option. I also have a standard option, which most people tend to go for. And then people who go, you know what, Jonathan, I want to get to the top of my career. I want to do it quickly. I don't want to be second best. I want to be highly competitive. Those are the ones that go for the premium. Okay. Other things I do is interview preparation. So if you've got an interview coming up, I help you prepare for that specific interview. And that's been really, really helpful, because a lot of people most people now walk into that interview far more prepared, far more confident, and the success rate of nailing that interview goes up dramatically. Another thing I do is CV and LinkedIn makeovers. So if you feel that your CV is holding you back, or you worry that it might not be selling yourself in the best light, then let's talk. And then I have another program that I'm going to talk to you about very, very quickly in a moment. So we all know that the job market is about to become very, very a lot more competitive. Okay. It's going to get worse. And I'm sorry. I know they've been preaching a lot of doom and gloom out there, but Morrison has said, in the next few months, Victoria's going to, see about 400,000 job losses. Okay. It started to happen. I've started seeing this with my clients. So really what it comes down to now is survival of the fittest. And that means it's no longer the person who has the most skills and experience that is going to land the role. It's the one who can promote and market themselves the best. Okay. Now, my programs are designed to transform you into the fittest and best of the pack. And the last thing I want to talk about very quickly is a new program that I've just launched. Okay. It's called the Authentic Self-Marketing Program. And it's really based around the concepts that I've shown you today, okay? And it's designed to help you promote and market yourself in a genuine and authentic way that feels natural for you, okay? That you don't have to encounter that false modesty, all right? I'm going to guide you through the process to help you create your own authentic and compelling sales message and a pitch that you can use across a number of platforms, all right? So who's the program for? Well, if you struggle to communicate and understand who and what you are, and what makes you valuable. If you struggle to answer that question, so tell me about yourself. Or, hey, if you've been affected by these lockdowns and the pandemic in terms of your employment, then this is the program to help you kind of get better, all right? Or make it out of there. So what are the outcomes? It's going to help you boost your confidence so that you can better sell yourself. You'll gain that competitive edge so you can stand out in a CV and a LinkedIn and an interview. Also, become a preferred candidate for hiring managers and recruiters. You know, when I was a recruitment consultant years ago, I noticed that it wasn't the most skilled and experienced and educated person that won the role. It was the one that I could easily sell to the client because they'd done such a good job of selling themselves. And I'm also able to help you make better decisions for the roles. So if you kind of going, well, you know what, I don't really know what roles I'm supposed to be looking for or anything else like that, then going through this process means that you know exactly what a good opportunity looks like, because it's got to do with those three jobs or problems that you love to solve. So I've just taken a few people through this already, and here's some feedback that they've given me. This is Candy, and I worked with Candy last month and the month before, and she was working as a senior level marketing manager in a global retailer. She left that position and found herself with a lack of confidence and clarity as to what she could offer the business. So we started working together, and she said, look, we spent time clarifying how my knowledge and experience could be a huge asset to the right business. It was helpful to ascertain exactly who my target market was as a candidate when applying for roles. So we went back to look at yourself as a business. Who's your target market? I learned how I could position myself as a solution to a business, a very helpful insight. I walked away from my final interaction with clear direction, clarity and confidence as I move towards the next step in my career. I'm so grateful that I took this opportunity to invest in myself, and the benefits have far exceeded my expectations. Right after we did this, with the next couple of weeks, Candy landed an awesome role in Melbourne during this pandemic with another global organization. Okay, I won't say the organization, but everybody knows it. All right, it's a big label. Okay, how does this work? How does the program work? Well, we're going to do 3 sessions, and it's running about 5 hours of major intense work to kind of, first of all, unpack you. Okay, and during that unpacking, we're going to figure out what 3 problems you love to solve, your capabilities to solve them, your areas of authority, what makes you valuable, your playbook, in other words, your process, and your label. In the second session, we're going to collaboratively work together to start designing your sales pitch that you can use in your CV, your LinkedIn, your elevator pitch, etc. And then in the third session, it's just a more of a nurturing kind of session to go, how are you going? Let's tweak, let's refine, let's check in, let's make sure you're on track. Because at the end of this, you'll know exactly what makes you valuable to an organization and communicate it with confidence. All right, nearly finished, nearly going to go into questions, but you're probably going, oh, Jonathan, come on, get to it already. What the heck is the cost? What's this going to cost me? Now, typically most of my programs, those 3 programs that I spoke about earlier, the basic, the standard and the premium, they start at $1,800, okay? Now, this one starts at $995, okay? So you can see it's a considerable difference in price. Now, because of the situation that we're in, and a lot of people have been financially impacted by COVID, I've also knocked off another $200 off this price to make it accessible so more people can get the advantage. So I've discounted at $795, okay? Now, here's the kicker. 3 people get to have it for $695, but it expires in 24 hours, okay? So if you're the first 3 people to sign up for this, you can get it within 24 hours, you can get it for the $695, saving yourself $100. This time tomorrow, okay, after this, it's going to go back up to $795. One more testimonial I want to offer you from someone who did the program. This is Misa. Misa is also a marketing professional. I told you I've been working with a lot of marketing professionals, taking them through this program, but it can work with a lot of people. During our time together working on my personal brand, Jonathan helped me tremendously in determining what my brand is and how to effectively communicate it. At the end of the process, I could confidently say that I aced every job interview and professional chats that came my way. Ultimately, I landed a new job in a global company in the industry I wanted in the middle of this flipping crisis. I mean, how hard was that? Yeah, a lot of people are really struggling, but you know, we used these formulas and she stood head and shoulders. Now, these, I missed out one just because of time, but these are 3 people that prove that the program and techniques work. They're real people. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can actually read their testimonials on LinkedIn and on my website. Now, if you're wanting to get these sort of results, then we need to talk, okay? I'm going to make it easy for you. After this webinar, I'm going to send you an email. It's going to have the link to the slides, okay? And I'm going to also invite you to work with me. And all you need to do is reply to this and we can start talking. It starts off with a simple Zoom chat, okay? Just so that I can find out your situation and what you're wanting to do. That is a complimentary Zoom chat, and you're under no obligation to do the program whilst at the end of it, okay? There's no pressure involved here. All right, so we've come to the end. I'm gonna flick out of the screen now.